Hello students, today we're going to talk about doing some basic adjustments in RAW. Now we've probably talked in class about why to shoot RAW. Actually the picture we're going to edit is not in RAW, but you can get a cleaner, non-destructive image by both shooting and editing in RAW. It's a much larger file size. It is not a JPEG. It has a different file extension. However, what's really interesting about editing in RAW is that you can actually edit JPEGs in RAW. And to do that using CS5's RAW editor, you must be in Browse and Bridge, which we are. We're going to open in Camera Raw. So I right click, open in Camera Raw. And you'll notice at this point that my image is in a different looking editor rather than Photoshop. This is its RAW editor. Now before we do anything, what's actually nice about editing in RAW is that it's immediate. There's no rendering. However, if you do not save properly, it will kind of save over top of your image without your permission, or without asking. So what we want to do is we actually want to go down and we're going to save our image before we start and then open that other one. So you'll see that I've named this Camera Raw 1 before. I am going to save this now as Camera Raw 1 after. You'll notice that it's a different file extension. It's called a digital negative. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to hit cancel here so it won't save. We've not made any edits, but I'm going to go ahead and exit out of there. So you'll notice now that we have two identical files, a before and an after. But notice that this file extension is different. It's no longer a JPEG, it's a DNG, and it has this little kind of notation, a circle with triangles at the top. It means that when I double click this, it's automatically going to open in this RAW editor. Now if you shoot in RAW, that will also happen. Photoshop will actually open this automatically in its RAW editor. So to show you a couple things here, we can use the zoom tool to zoom in, or you can zoom in here to see something a lot closer, or you can also go back to fit in view. You can use the hand tool to kind of move things around or grab things if needed. We're actually going to use this white balance tool in just a moment. We have a regular color sampler. We have a targeted adjustment tool. We're not going to mess with that today. A cropping tool, which we will come back to. Straightening tool, spot removal, red eye removal. We'll come back in another tutorial to deal with the adjustment brush. And these other filters and preferences we'll deal with another time as well. You can also rotate images in here just again like you could in Photoshop. So the first thing we want to do is we're just going to do a simple crop. I actually want to crop a little bit of my husband's jacket in the foreground here. Unfortunately I can't get rid of all of it, at least not in here. And I go ahead and hit enter. I also want to do a white balance. Now I can do white balance a couple different ways. The first thing I can do is go over this first dialog box. This is our basic editor, and I can say white balance as it was shot. I can have it choose auto, which unfortunately makes it look a little bit blue, or I can custom decide to do it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my white balance tool, and I'm going to click on what I think should be white, and notice how this changes. Actually, it's going to tell me here in a minute that the area I chose was too bright. So if you notice here, actually it kind of brightens it up a little bit too much. I can try and find other white areas that might work. And notice how it kind of keeps changing the white balance slightly. I kind of like that one, but I'm still going to make some other adjustments. You can always undo your work by hitting Control Z, and that will back up any edits that are unwanted. So let me come over here, and again with white balance and coloring, a lot of the adjustments I'm going to make are very subjective, and that means it's really up to you what you think looks best based on what you shot and how you want to fix it. So I can warm up or cool down the temperature here. I can adjust the tint of it by making it lighter or darker. And then down here as well, I can change the exposure, how light or dark. All of these things adjust the lightness and darkness of certain areas in the picture. So sometimes dealing with the fill light, the blacks as far as how dark or how light some of these things will adjust. The brightness and contrast are very obvious. You can brighten the photo and then also increase the contrast. Now the clarity down here, this is almost like a sharpen tool. I'm going to kind of go to the extreme here and show you that this works very much like the sharpen tool does or the Smart Sharpen in Photoshop. But notice that again, it's making immediate changes rather than having to click and wait for it to render. Your vibrance will actually increase your midtones, and your saturation, the overall color, will either saturate the picture or desaturate it, depending on what effect you want. So sometimes you might want to improve the overall image of the picture. Other times you might actually want to create an effect, and we'll work on some of those another time. I'm going to click on this second toolbar here called Tone and Curve, and you'll notice that we have two different kind of bars under here. Parametric is the first one, and so we are going to, you can increase or decrease your highlights. Also the same with your light and dark areas, as well as your shadows. Again, a lot of the adjustments I'm making here are just to my eyeball. I'm just trying to see what might I like. Now for those of you who've worked in curves before, if we go over to point, you could actually click and move and drag and make all of your corrections, color corrections, by hand. Okay, and as I had mentioned before, the reason that we saved this after, before we even got started, is because once I hit done, it will automatically save for us the image that we've worked on. And so at this point, I don't really have to hit save image. I could, that's just a little bit redundant, but so I could hit save image and just save over top. Or if I just hit done, basically every edit that I did here will save. The only way to get rid of, if I didn't want to save any of the edits on this one, if I realized I did not save a before picture, then I would hit cancel. Open image would allow me to do further editing in Photoshop, and this is something that we'll take a look at in future tutorials. So right now I'm just going to hit done. I'm going to go back to my browse and bridge and notice the difference between the two images. I'm cropped in closer. My saturation and the colors are a little bit more vibrant. Even you can see with some of the plants in the background there as well. So again, I've made some very slight color corrections and some cropping, all done in RAW. So I would like you to perform this action. Again, please make sure that you are saving your after before you even get started on both my picture and the picture that you choose to edit for your first RAW image. It might be a RAW image you've shot, or it might just be a JPEG that you edit in RAW. Good luck.